All right, welcome to our podcast. We're going to do this podcast because there's a community meeting that's going to take place Monday, January 22nd at the Porters Lake Community Center. Session 1 will take place from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. and Session 2 will take place from 6 p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. at the Porters Lake Community Center. And that's in regards about the possibility of the installation of sidewalks and the potential pathways that are supposed to connect the Eastern Shore communities to the community of Porters Lake. Now, we're doing this podcast, and I call it, in my opinion, because it is my opinion. And the reason is why we're doing this because we had read your Facebook messages on over social media about your outrage about this. How the majority of us feel, from what we read, it's a bad time to be bringing this up because of the cost of everything with the issues with inflation and the affordability. It's just out of reach. It's basically a bad time to be bringing this up, and it's a sick joke to be doing right now because people just can't afford the luxury things that we like to have. And one of the worst things that we can have is people in office who do things without our consent and are not tuned into the reality of what's going around them out in the community. Now, in my opinion, this is my opinion. This is a done deal. That could be a done deal, I should say, one way or the other. A lot like the Eastern District High issue, how the province had that a done deal before the community of Muscatobit Harbor had the chance to make a proposal trying to keep the high school in their community. In my opinion only, this is the same setup. What I got to say is right now, David Hinsby should have been replaced a long time ago. He should have been gone during the last provincial municipal election, I should say. And the reason why these people get in, I'm not going to point the finger at Hinsby specifically, I'm talking about these politicians specifically, is because people do not vote. A lot of people say, well, I ain't got the time to go vote and all this stuff, And a lot of them say, well, the polling stations are 1,000 miles away. I just can't, get to that location to vote. Well, for starters, during the municipal election, the voting's done online. You can vote from your house at any time. And top it off, there's no excuse. People have the chance to vote. They can do it when they do so. But one of the things that I know is that people are not willing to take their stand, take their community back, and have the attitude like how a buddy of mine, when I become president of the United States, Donald Trump, how his attitude was, take America back and make America great again. And I say we got to do the same thing, but take our community back and make our Eastern Shore community great again and make it in a way how we want it and not how these politicians want it. Because in my opinion only, provincial politics, party politics have been making things worse than what they're doing any good, and they have not been addressing issues that matter to you, but rather matters to themselves and their own party so they can generate more money so they can feed their own corporate greed of wealth, which they get from us, the taxpayers' money, when they drive up the tax rate. And if it wasn't for us going to work, working like dogs, how we work, they wouldn't be having the luxuries that they're having to take. Because in my opinion, I think David Hinsby's a good guy. He means well. But it's time for him to step aside and let somebody else become counselor. In my opinion, that David Hinsby's replacement came a few elections ago. Mr. Tim Mulligan, he was the perfect person. But people on the Eastern Shore, being themselves, swallow their pride and ignorance. They don't give people the opportunity. And because of that, they didn't vote him in, and Mr. Hinsby remains to be community council member. And I got to say right now, all these problems that you see right now all evolves around your former MLA, Mr. Keith Caldwell, when he was the MLA for the Eastern Shore, when his Liberal Party, led by John Savage, the late John Savage, I should say, when they came up with the idea of amalgamation that took place in 1995. And I got to say right now, ever since when amalgamation came into effect, everything went backwards. We didn't go forward, we went backwards. Only the corporate wealth and these politicians are benefit from it because, the problem here is people like David Hensby, Mike Savage, these guys are so paid so unrealistically high. They're out of tune of reality of what you, the people, are facing, the financial stress, the financial burdens, to the point that they clearly cannot represent our community properly. And they're doing it in a way that how you don't want it to be. And like I said, in my opinion only, David Hensby should have been replaced a long time ago. Not now in 2024. David Hensby should have been replaced way back in 2018. Not facing re-election. And that's because people are allowing these politicians, failed politicians, I should say, to do as they please. And I'm going to say right now, from all the Facebook postings, responses, what I've seen in regards of this possibility of sidewalks, the installation of sidewalks in the community of Porters Lake, and the potential of these pathways that are going to connect the Eastern Shore communities to Porters Lake, the response is not healthy for Hensby. It doesn't look healthy. This looks very toxic. It shows the anger and the frustration that the people of Porters Lake are expressing. David Hensby's job is he has to understand and tune in the reality of what you guys are feeling at home. And it's his job to say, all right, they don't want this, and let's not do it. But my opinion, what they should be doing, this is my opinion only, they should be installing at least a crosswalk in front of the Porters Lake Shopping Plaza so people can cross that bloody number 7 highway without getting hit by cars while they're going to Tim Hortons, because the majority of the time they're going to Tim Hortons, or they could be going down to that strip mall down there just past that Needs gas station. And they could also use a set of lights in front of the William Porter Connector intersection, the number 7 highway. But one of the suggestions that David Hensby had mentioned to myself in the past about the William Porter Connector is a potential roundabout at the intersection of the William Porter Connector where it connects with the number 7 highway. And a lot of people had agreed to that. They liked that idea. But a lot of people had stated what I had stated in the past. Majority of the people don't understand how roundabouts work. They don't fully understand the right of way, who goes when it's their turn to go onto the roundabout to enter it and exit it. And it causes a lot of confusion and a lot of accidents. And a lot of people had liked that suggestion, what Hensby had made a few years back. And I think David Hensby should be lobbying that to the province. Because, I think the community right now, what they had stated, they mean it. They don't want these crosswalks because they don't want their tax rates going to the point they can't afford to live in their Eastern Shore community. Just now, that public transit bus, the 401, that runs from Porters Lake to Portland Hills, is just now starting to have reasonable ridership. The normal ridership for that public transit is 14 passengers per trip. Now they have over 21 people, sometimes 30 people per trip on that bus. So that means now that bus is starting to work. For that rapid service, that 370, it requires a little more people to get on board for that to remain functioning. And from what I can tell, when it comes to the public transit, no matter how good the city will try to adjust the hours, people just will not get on that service. But when the city decides, all right, let's take it away, then everybody's saying, well, we could use a public transit bus. Well, you guys got to get on the bus for it to work in the first place, to have it functioning, to have it run in operation. But that's public transit. But we're going to show here a few pictures of the tax rates. A woman posted, I'm not going to mention her name, she showed off the municipal tax rates for 2023, 2024. Take a look at it. We also have a projection of the community of Porters Lake and the communities, from what we can tell, that the communities colored in orange are going to be the communities that are going to be impacted if these sidewalks are installed in the community of Porters Lake. Now, I would suggest that these assume that these sidewalks, I should say, are going to be installed in front of the Porter's Lake Shopping Plaza. Well, if I was going to install them, that's where I would put them. But that's what I have to say about that. But I got to say is, this cannot go forward without our approval. I mean, one person stated, well, this must be something that Hinsby cooked up. I would say this is something like more of the Halifax municipal planning has cooked up, and Hinsby just put some insight on it, some feedback on it. But those communities shaded in red, I would say that's Hinsby's suggestions there. But in my opinion only, Hinsby has to realize if he's not going to be here to work for the community, how we want our community to look, I think it's time for Hinsby to vacate his seat and make way for a new person to take his seat over. Because he's been there for 21 years. He's been there since 2003 when he just barely lost to Keith Caldwell in that Preston riding. I remember that. I was on Caldwell's campaign team at the time. He just barely lost that seat. And I got to say right now, when politicians are in office too long, they start making mistakes. They start slipping. And like I said in the past, party politics has been causing more problems than when what they're doing any good. And like I said, this all goes back to amalgamation with Keith Caldwell's Liberal Party with the late John Savage. We're feeling more effects from it. And, what it comes to then right now is people are financially strapped. We cannot afford our tax rates going any higher because we can't afford to live in our community any longer, what it comes down to. And top it off, you got Mike Savage sitting there, a mayor. The man's a millionaire. There's no way humanly possible for him to address poverty. No way for him to address what we go through, I should say, to put food on the table, to feed ourselves, let alone feed our families, if you can. He doesn't have a sight on what that's like because the man's a millionaire. He was brought up on a silver spoon. David Hinsby, the same thing. He's well paid as a council member. He doesn't understand what we go through, not being able to afford things. What David Hinsby needs to do is withdraw with this proposal and bring it back when this inflation crisis, this affordable housing crisis surpasses, when it passes by. Then bring it back when people are more financially secure. But what it comes down to is these politicians are pushing the people of their community around, and they're going to keep on doing it because it's like they'll keep pushing to see how far that they can push you before you decide enough's enough. You take it back. It's a lot like the best example, the issue with Al's Head. Remember how the Liberal Party, the Nova Scotia Liberal Party, wants to install a golf course there? They try tooth and nail every crooked way humanly possible to get that golf course there. During that provincial election, Kent Smith was saying everything what you want to hear and all this stuff. Of course he's going to say that. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Kent Smith, if he had the opportunity, him and his party, with Tim Houston, they would do the exact same thing. He's only telling you people stuff what you want to hear just so it benefits himself, so he can get himself elected. And then when he gets here, nothing changed. It's the same old, same old, same old. And I'm going to tell you right now, Kent Smith, from the response what I heard back from the community, it's not good. It's ugly. And, it's bad enough we may have to replace Hinsby, but Mr. Kent Smith may have to follow also and on his first 4-year term. And he said, how is it human? That's what I asked one person. I said, I got to ask you a question. And she said, what's that? How is it humanly possible for one person to get elected as MLA for the Eastern Shore and only serve a 4-year term? And in that 1 year, 4-year term, he only served 2 years of that 4-year term. And he's burning every bridge he can possibly burn with most residents of the Eastern Shore and expecting to survive the next provincial election. I said, how is that humanly possible? And she said, well, Adam, unfortunately, that happens when the wrong people run. It's all about the party politics making money. They're addressing stuff that doesn't matter to you. What matters to these party politics? And it's all about them accessing their wealthy MLA pensions so they can retire in wealth. Well, the average Nova Scotian lives in poverty, struggles to put food on the table, struggles to pay their rent, struggles to pay their light and power bill. And they have no clue what the average person goes through, as they're too busy focused on their pension. And then most Nova Scotians don't even get a pension. In fact, the majority of them lives in poverty. And then the other issue what came up to is, well, with all this money, what they're making, where's it all going? One person stated, well, the federal government's bringing all these immigrants into Canada. The question is, where's all that money going? If they can house these immigrants coming into our country, why can't they house our own Canadian people? Why do we have a tent city in Halifax? Why do we have people living in these tents in Halifax and Dartmouth and throughout this region of Halifax? And that's just Halifax itself. That's not Nova Scotia. So the bottom line is, when you look at Nova Scotia, when you look at our community of Porters Lake, we got to start severing our ties with these failed politicians. Hensby, from what I can tell on social media, it's going to be a rough ride on Monday night, on Monday, January 22nd, from 6 p.m. to 8 o'clock at night. But from what I can tell, it's going to be muddy ugly for him. But the only way how people like Hensby is going to get the message is when you vote him out. Well, from what I can see right now, people of the Eastern Shore are not brave enough to stand up to him and vote him out. They're scared, they're cowards, they're chickens. A few years back, I was a hooligan for telling these people to vote Hensby out. I should have been locked up, put away, never been let out again. I was the Antichrist. Remember that? Suddenly, everything what I said is all true. Because I've been warning people about this for years. I've seen this coming. And I'm telling you right now, you want things to get better, you got to get rid of these politicians that have been sitting there for the past 20, 30 years, like Hensby. He's been council member since 2003. It's time for him to go. Make way for somebody new so it's fresh. Same thing with Kent Smith. Get that clown out of there. Get him out. And we got to address these party politics. If you're not going to address concerns that matters to our community and to ourselves, don't bother banging on our doors come election day. And I'll tell you right now, and that's what these parties are all about, is themselves making money. And I'll tell you right now, not one of those parties actually address matters here on the Eastern Shore that actually matter to us. So this community meeting on Monday, January 22nd, I strongly suggest that you go out, you express your anger. And I'm going to say right now, Hensby right now, a message for Hensby right now. If you're going to go out there and try to force this through, from what I can see before me now, chances are you're not going to be council member come next year. I believe next year is election. And we all remember during the last municipal election, as soon as it was over, didn't Hensby and Mike Savage go out and send the police after these homeless people and force them out of their city properties because they had nowhere to go? That just goes to show their true colors when it comes to their own people when they're in crisis. You don't go sending people to jail because they got nowhere to live. It means that there's a housing crisis because our failed politicians, what we see, are not actually addressing things that actually matters and things that are actually in crisis. They let issues fall into crisis before they actually get up, address it, and deal with it. But anyways, I strongly suggest that you guys get out, attend this meeting at the Porters Lake Community Center, and make your frustration heard to Hensby loud and strong.